My name's Hugh Warren. I'm the producer of Above Suspicion, Deadly Intent. It's the third in a series of adaptations of Lynda's books. And I guess I came to it quite late in a way. Gillis was already on board, Gillis McKinnon, the director. And I'd worked with Nigel Willoughby, the DOP, before. So that was really great to be back with Nigel, because he's, again, an extremely talented DOP and also great fun to be around. He's always very funny, very entertaining. So the story is centred around the killing of Frank Brandon, who is shot in a drug squat in an estate in South London. And we had a real gift of location there, because the Haygate estate, the Elephant and Castle, has been, they're doing a massive redevelopment of the whole area. They've emptied the estate effectively. I think there was about 4 families still in the whole estate. Which meant we could pretty much do what we wanted there. The interior of the squat we built, so it's easier to film, obviously. Frank Brandon, in fact, was played by an ex-Metropolitan officer who is a researcher for Lynda.
I'm Cass Sutherland, playing the part of Frank Brandon. Some would say typecast. I'm an ex-police officer myself, and this character is an ex-police officer who's got involved with some rather nasty drug-dealing people, and unfortunately he gets shot on the estate.
From the housing estate we moved into, ironically, BBC Worldwide had sold off their old offices and they were about to be redeveloped, and so they were standing empty, and so we built the incident room for the police station in there, and that was a very convenient location, gave us a lot of other locations around it. Ian Fisher, the designer, built a really good set there. We had a great staircase and a lift shaft in the middle of it, which we stripped out and put perspex around, so you've got nice sight lines through it and a bit of movement up and down stairs and so on to keep the space alive. Interview room, for example, again, they can be really deadly. They're 4 walls. He built a really great set with interesting lighting in it. Gillis, kept it alive with the camera. We went to a variety of locations. Obviously, there's practical considerations when we were shooting the car stunt, for example. We need completely controllable environment. You can't send Porsches off the road and turn them over on a public road, so we shot that in Chertsey on a test track.
Big day, well, for everybody really. The demise of Julia, kicking the Porsche, losing control and going off the road, and obviously we've got the Vickers team here and our stunt coordinator to orchestrate it all, and as you can see we're busy covering the ramp so we don't see it. A lot of health and safety to be worrying about, and lots of fast cars driving around test tracks. It's always heart in the mouth moment sometimes, but that's why we have our professionals in place to make sure it all goes smoothly. But yeah, fingers crossed, everything's going to plan and we're looking good at the moment.
Hello, my name's Gary Connery. I'm working as the stunt coordinator on Deadly Intent. What we've got here today is a scene where a lovely actress is being chased by some Colombians trying to get her to pull over, and she's very frightened and doesn't really know what's going on, and she pulls onto this track, and ultimately what happens, her character goes off the side of the road and is decapitated as she goes into the trees. So what we've got set up here, we've got a cannon in the back of the Porsche that you can see sitting here. We put a dummy inside to simulate the girl driving, and just to my left here we've got what's called a pipe ramp, and so the cannon fires the car up the ramp, and it's set in a position so that the car rotates in the air, and we can kind of sell the idea that she's been decapitated, and then tea and cakes. Yes.
Driving a Porsche was a great experience. It was my first time, and I hope it will not be the last time. It sort of pushed my adrenaline, if you can say that in English, and it was great, really great. And then I just saw them, the crew, crashing a Porsche in the woods, because my character, obviously, she dies in a car crash.
I think it went very well. I think the speed and the height, I think, probably surprised everybody, but certainly got what we were after. It's ended up on its roof, which sells the story that she's been decapitated, which is fantastic. I think they got some great footage.
Now, the plastic surgery day was great fun. Marco is, in fact, is not an actor playing a plastic surgeon. He is a plastic surgeon. But we felt quite strongly that because we needed the credibility of the surgery and just the way he interacted with the patient, the way he particularly handled the tools, handled his face, handled the marking of the face, the cutting of the skins. Marco did that with such confidence and ease, because it's what he does for a living, that I think it's a much more convincing scene because of that. So rather than have him there as a consultant telling an actor what to do, we just use Marco himself.
We are shooting a sequence that happens story-wise about 6 weeks after the surgery, which is extensive surgery. So a certain amount of healing has already happened, but we're leaving the residue of the surgery so that we can tell the story visually. Around the edges of Richard's face, we're doing a little bit of scarring by the ear and the jawline. We've done bruising around the eyes because Fitzpatrick has had a nose job amongst all the other procedures that he's been through. So when you have a nose job, typically your eyes, both eyes, look like you've been punched.
Luckily, not as bad as it would be if it was being really done. Oh.
The prosthetic that we'd had built as well was extraordinarily convincing, really, incredibly mobile. The flesh on the skin was really real. It was quite spooky, and to feel this thing and touch it, and I think it looks completely convincing on camera. Shooting at the airfield was a good day, but it was a day where we struggled with appalling weather. We'd generally been quite lucky with the weather, but we arrived at this airfield and it was really overcast, and it rained and the sun came out, continuity nightmare. So you've got to work around the wind direction. You never know until you actually get there on the day which runway you're going to be able to shoot on. So you've got to be very flexible in arranging that. The airfield also still has to function. You can't close the whole thing down. So you have to work around other people using that space, and a lot of obviously health and safety issues with that. The plane was owned by somebody who works for La Plante, Ian Sutherland, who does post-production within the company. And so that gave us a lot of, we could deal with it a lot beforehand. We had access to Ian beforehand, obviously. Both Kieran and Kelly turned in blinding performances because it's an unusual ending for the show. One of the things I loved about the script was the fact that Fitzpatrick gets away. They don't get their man, they don't get the drugs. It's a kind of thwarted investigation in that sense. And a very heightened emotional moment between Langton and Travis at the end, when Langton is realising how it's all gone horribly wrong and what that could do for his career.
Have you lost your mind?
That's my career up the spout. What do I bloody care?
I care. I care.
St Pancras was an interesting day as well. Because of the nature of what we were shooting, we had to film all the CCTV footage before we went into the control room to see them on film, and because of actor availability and so on, we had to do it before we had the actor, and then go back with Julian Sands to film him walking around as Damien in various places to match the CCTV footage we'd shot before. We also were able to use St Pancras for a Colombian church, rather strangely, a South American church. It would not be what you'd expect to get in a kind of Gothic red brick building, but I think it works very well. Just on one part of it we stuck a Madonna in there and some candles, and there you go, we have a Colombian church. The other aspect of shooting in St Pancras, obviously it's a public place, it's a main station in London. We were having to pull out firearms. The scene involved armed police.
Armed police, here we go! Now! Get down on the ground, do it now!
So obviously there's issues around that. You can't scare the public, you have to have the real police with you, you have to have armourers with you. And that's always slightly nerve-wracking, because inevitably when you're filming in a place like that you do get crowds gathering around and watching you. And in fact, because of the nature of what we were shooting, we chose to do it on the upper concourse because that's much more manageable. It's much quieter at St Pancras, but also for us visually it was much richer because you get the beautiful canopy of St Pancras. And unusually for me, I guess a lot of the crew were already on board, so I wasn't putting together the team in the way I would normally. But I have to say they're all a great team. It was a really nice, enjoyable shoot. People all kind of worked together really well. We had good fun doing it.